Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of the Educational AD Podcast. We're going to be right back with today's guest, but we want to give a shout out to our partners. Our partners include Vital Signs Wall of Fame, the Florida Coaches Coalition, We Coach, and the Global Community of Women in High School Sports. You've heard me say many times, these are four great organizations that should really be a part of your network. Now, don't hit that fast forward button. Stay with us for the next 3 minutes. We're going to give a shout out to our sponsors. These are companies that I used as an athletic director. You should be using them too. Here we go. We want to say thanks to Gipper. Gipper is the exclusive social media graphic solution for the podcast. And if you go to Gipper.com, their team is going to help you create world-class content for your school's social media channel. Your students and your parents are on social media, and if you're not promoting your program, celebrating your team's accomplishments, you're really missing out. Gipper's used and trusted by over 3,000 athletic programs across the country. It's professional graphic design made simple. Go to Gipper.com, mention the podcast, you'll get a nice discount. That's Gipper.com. We also want to say thanks to Vital Signs Wall of Fame. Go to their website, vitalsignswalloffame.com. Check out their interactive touchscreen. That's right, touchscreen video consoles. It's a great way to showcase your school record boards, your school's Hall of Fame, or simply tell your school's stories. Celebrate your proudest moments and your top role models. The website's vitalsignswalloffame.com. Once again, mention the podcast, you'll get a nice discount. vitalsignswalloffame.com. We'd like to thank Hometown Ticketing, the leading digital ticketing provider to schools and colleges. I don't think I need to say anything more. Go to hometownticketing.com. It's digital ticketing that offers more. hometownticketing.com. We want to say thanks to Sideline Interactive, indoor score tables and video boards. Go to sidelineinteractive.com. They'll schedule a live web demo to show you their indoor score tables and their scoreboards. Their products not only generate income for your athletic department, but they also create the ultimate game day experience for your student athletes. That's sidelineinteractive.com. Check out their great products today. We also want to say thank you to Huddle. Go to huddle.com and change the way you see the game. As a football coach, I used Huddle for years, but when I became an athletic director, I made sure that our school was a Huddle school, and our coaches just loved the tools that Huddle provided that helped them coach our kids up to their highest level. Go to huddle.com, join the 8 million users, and turn your school into a Huddle school. We'd also like to say thank you to SnapRaise. Are you tired of spending hours and hours with fundraisers for little, if any, return? Stop right here. Go to snapraise.com/EDAD. Hands down, the best online fundraiser out there. We used it at our school. Our coaches loved it. Our parents loved it. What's more important, it actually works. SnapRaise also has, Snap Mobile also has a lot of other platforms like Snap Store, Snap Manage, Snap Connect. You can find it all at snapraise.com/EDAD. We'd like to thank Home Campus for their support. Home Campus is the exclusive high school and state association management platform for us. It's also your one-stop for things like schedules, facility management, student athlete eligibility and clearance. Just fantastic. Go to homecampus.com. Their team is incredibly easy to work with. As an athletic director, I used Home Campus every day. Go to homecampus.com to get started. And we want to say thanks to Athletic Surveys by LifeTrack. Athletic directors already hear back from the complainers, the people that want to gripe about everything. In reality, that's really a small percentage. Athletic surveys can connect you with the complainers, but they're also going to connect you with the 98% that supports your program. And that's a tremendously valuable tool to have when you're talking with a frustrated parent or your principal or your school board. Go to athleticsurveys.com. They're going to create a custom survey that lets you take the pulse of your parents, your student athletes, everyone in your program. That's athleticsurveys.com. Hey, welcome back, everyone, to another episode of the Educational AD Podcast. Our guest today is Jayme Pendergast. She is the Director of Athletics at Life University in Marietta, Georgia. Got a very strong athletic background. Jayme and I connected. We were both attending, I guess, a webinar, and she just made some really good points. I thought she'd be a great guest for us, and she was gracious enough to join us today. So, Jayme Pendergast, welcome to the Educational AD Podcast.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Happy to be here.
Well, you and I were talking before we came on. It's a busy time, so let's go ahead and jump right into it. We always like to let our listeners have a chance to get to know our guests. So give us your quick bio, where you were born, where you grew up, maybe take us up through your own high school and college days, and then we'll take a break. But what's the Jayme Pendergast origin story?
Yeah, thank you. I grew up in middle of nowhere, Ohio. The closest town was Findlay, Ohio. And, I loved Ohio, but I've migrated south. Appreciate this weather a lot more. But I grew up a big sports fan. For me, athletics was really the only thing that challenged me. I found school in high school easy, and so I was really drawn to the discomfort and the challenge that sports brought. I always wanted to play college basketball. That was always a dream of mine. But unfortunately, my knees did not agree with that. And I had 3 ACL surgeries before my junior year of high school. So I finished out my high school career, but really knew that college athletics just wasn't in my future. So I went to college in Miami of Ohio. Decided that first day I was on campus, I walked into the basketball coach's office and just say, hey, like, I'm a student here. How can I help? They gave me a manager position. And from there, I just never looked back. I had such a great athletic experience through that job opportunity. But as a student at Miami, I was just so challenged academically, socially. That campus was a lot bigger than what I had experienced being middle of nowhere, Ohio, and really just grew as a person. That college experience opened a whole lot of doors for me. And I knew I wanted to live out my career on a college campus from that point. And so got my master's at UNC Greensboro, got my first job at Elon University in North Carolina. I started out in academic support for athletics, spent 5-6 years doing that. I really enjoyed being in front of the student athlete and helping them through their academic side of their athletic experience. And then moved to Atlanta, took this job at Life University. Small college athletics is just such a different world, but it's so meaningful. And that's why I'm still here today.
Wow, I always love to hear the stories. I want to go back to what you did as a college freshman. You walked into the coach's office and said, "Hey, what can I do?" And so many, again, most of our listeners are high school athletic directors, high school coaches. We got a few college listeners, but so many of the student athletes that let's say we graduate each year, those seniors, so few of them are actually going to play collegiate sports. But I'll bet a lot of them still have that same love of sports that you did. And I think we do a disservice to not encourage them to do exactly what you did, to go to that basketball coach, that soccer coach, that football coach, because as you know, they are desperate for help. And you might start out as a volunteer, but it can also develop into something else. Looking back at that experience that you had as a manager, and I know it expanded into other areas, but what were some experiences that you had in that managerial role that now as a college athletic director, there's a one-to-one connection? Anything jump to mind?
Well, I think a lot of it just introduced me to the two sides of the coin, right? So, you have the student athlete side, you have the on-court side of things. And I think just being a passenger and seeing that in depth, you get everything from the day-to-day practices to game days to travel, to the one-on-one office meetings. But the other side of that is from a coach's perspective. What does the administrative side of things look like? I learned so much about the intentionality behind everything that they do to set up their preseasons, their in-seasons, their postseasons, their team building, what their summers look like, what does organized intentional recruiting look like. That perspective was really, really valuable to me in what I do now, because I spent so much time with the women's basketball coaching staff in my 4 years at Miami, and I got better insight on the day-to-day than even I do a bit now as an AD, because it's not like I'm sitting in our coaches' offices for 8 hours, but it's the perspective that I just took with me, and it's just I would encourage, yeah, if you love sports, like, and you have a high schooler that doesn't want to continue playing or didn't get the opportunity to continue playing, those opportunities are real at any college level, doesn't matter. And if it's not working with a team, it might be with the sports information department, or it might be with the athletic training office. Athletics is such a great environment to get that real world experience. And it's still valuable to this day.
Again, absolutely spot on. And, 100 years ago when I was going to college, I just knew I wanted to teach and coach. There weren't athletic administration programs like there are now, and they're great programs. But to your point, even those great programs, they can't provide in their classes and coursework that hands-on, day-to-day, uh, hour by hour experience that you get from being with a team. And again, you gave some great examples, serving as a manager in the team, working with athletic training, communications, even the athletic director themselves at a college, all the minutia that they have to do to run a department. It's that insider's look that just, hey, I'd like to help out, can really open some doors for you later on. Okay, very cool. Thanks for sharing
Yeah.
that. We're going to go and take our first break, but our guest today is Jayme Pendergast. She is the Director of Athletics at Life University in Marietta, Georgia. We're going to hear more about her day-to-day, but let's go and take that first break. We'll be right back. This is the Educational AD Podcast. We'd like to say thanks to Gipper, which is the official social media graphics solution for the podcast. And if you go to Gipper.com, their team is going to help you to create world-class marketing content for your school's social media channel. Your kids, even your parents, are on social media. And if you're not celebrating your teams and promoting your athletes, you're really missing out on a great opportunity. Gipper's used and trusted by over 3,000 athletic programs, both high school and college, across the country, and it's professional graphic design made simple. It's so simple, even I can use it. Go to Gipper.com. Tell them you heard about it on the podcast. You'll get a nice discount. That's Gipper.com. We'd also like to say thanks to Vital Signs Wall of Fame. Go to their website and check out their interactive touchscreen, that's right, touchscreen video consoles. It's a great way to showcase your school record boards, your school's Hall of Fame, or simply showcase your school's diverse history and your proudest moments. The website is vitalsignswalloffame.com. And once again, if you mention the podcast, you'll get a nice discount. That's vitalsignswalloffame.com. Let them help you bring your school's legacy to life. Welcome back, everyone, to the Educational AD Podcast. Jayme, you kind of outlined a little bit of your career path, after graduation. Talk a little bit about that process. How did those first jobs materialize for you? What were some things that you did to kind of sell yourself to those colleges that you were the one for the job?
Yeah, I mean, even though athletics is kind of notoriously, overworked, underpaid, those entry level positions are just so competitive. And I mean, I say this in interviews, it's because the work's so meaningful. But I had a really great mentor. His name was Phil Moses. He was at NC State in academic support, and he helped me connect with Casey Crenshaw at Elon University to get that first position. They were competitive, and it's really hard when I didn't have necessarily academic support experience, but I had 4 years of working on a college campus as an undergrad myself, working with student athletes, and, really kind of just sold her on the passion of wanting to be there and the skill set. And, I was lucky that she took a chance on me, and, I got, promoted through my time at Elon. Couldn't say enough good things about that institution. And, when I went to Life University, it was really interesting because it was different. It was kind of like a startup athletic department at a small school, very, very unfamiliar territory for me. But again, it was about selling the skill set. And I wouldn't necessarily say I used networking for that particular job. It was kind of a blind application and interview process. But I think in somebody's career path, you really have to look at the skill set and transferring that, and rely on networking when it applies.
We talk about, and maybe it's a little bit different for the high school level. We talk about the importance of networking and how over the course of your career, it's very impactful. Um, what were some of the skill sets that you had at the time, that you maybe stressed either on paper or in those interviews that sold Life on you, that you were the one they needed to hire?
I mean, I've always been a systems thinker. I don't know if I had that terminology back then, but a big strength that I think I bring is to be able to see things from multiple perspectives, multiple lenses, put it kind of together in my head, and come up with a very organized way to execute effectively and efficiently. I think there's a lot of people that do things, they get the job done, but it's not always the straightest line. And so I was very organizational focused. And I think that came across in the way I communicated, both verbally and non-verbally, through email. But also I think I was able to articulate just the passion for wanting to be on a college campus, work with student athletes. I think that came through as well. But because of that, I think good systems organization, I'm just able to get through a lot of responsibilities, and execute at a high level, because it's efficient, and the systems are effective. And like I said, I don't know if I would have articulated back then, but I think the early work showed that, managing a million different things as a manager, for a college head coach to give them essentially a volunteer manager student so many responsibilities, I think just kind of showed that piece.
No, again, I'm kind of that same way. I can look at things from those different perspectives, and I think that's paid off well for me. Talk a little bit about and we get a lot of younger ADs, younger coaches that do listen to the podcast, and that might not yet be a tool in their toolbox. We'll talk about the toolbox later, of course. Let's go back to those managerial duties. What were some of the things that you did, back then, and even maybe at Elan, that gave you that or helped enhance that systems perspective that now is part of your toolbox? Can you highlight some of those?
Yeah, I mean, from my days as a manager, it was a lot of, I think you would call like low level admin stuff, but I was able to get through it really quickly. So you're talking a lot of the practice setup, a lot of the practice organization, so that the coaches didn't have to worry about the equipment side of things or what's set up on the scoreboard at different times, because I could read a practice plan and stay one step ahead. So they're never looking over to the scores table and being like, I said 5 minutes for this drill. Making sure things are picked up and put away. They didn't have to worry about that. Film on game days was a big piece, for me. We had, I forget what the system was called at that time, but it wasn't as advanced as film systems are now. But we would have to manually clip game day footage. And I found a way to do it as we videotaped instead of videotaping and then clipping afterwards. And it just saved an incredible amount of time. And so those are just some of the small skill sets where it's like, I can figure out a better way of doing this that would save me time and the coach's time. And then at Elon, one of the early systems that I kind of had an idea for is we had this like objectives based accountability system for our high risk student athletes, where it was breaking things down. For a high risk student, sometimes like all the assignments it's complex, especially in their busy student athlete schedule. And so us as academic coordinators, I designed a system of objectives where we broke down their academic priorities in a more manageable way, gave them more specific deadlines, and it made it more manageable for that high risk student. And it worked really well. And it also provided a really good accountability system for the coach. So instead of on Friday telling my soccer coach that, Chris didn't complete what he needed to, I could tell him on Tuesday because he didn't get his Tuesday objectives done. And it's kind of it's the way I thought, but I thought it brought some strengths to the table and it benefited, the student athlete, the coaches as well.
Oh, no, absolutely. And from a resume standpoint, I mean, you've got the minutia from the coaching end. There's a deep dive into academics, from the student athlete perspective. All those things that an athletic director, is going to have some sort of casual understanding, but yet, you've got those, to the nth degree from having actually done them. Great stuff. Great examples. Thanks for sharing that. For our listeners, once again, our guest today is Jayme Pendergast. She is the Director of Athletics at Life University in Marietta, Georgia. We're going to take another break, but when we come back, we're going to take a little deeper dive into her current position at Life. So please stay with us. This is the Educational AD Podcast. We want to say thanks to our good friends at Hometown Ticketing for their support of the podcast. Go to hometownticketing.com. It's digital ticketing that offers more. At Hometown, their team is going to show you how to set up and sell tickets online, not just for your athletic events, but for things like school plays, concerts, school dances, even graduation. And here's the best part. Every school is assigned a dedicated client success manager that's going to provide you hands-on support every step of the way. That's every step of the way. Go to hometownticketing.com. Like I said, it's digital ticketing that offers more support, more security, more customization. Hometown is here to help you make the best online ticketing solution. We also want to say thanks to Huddle. Go to huddle.com and change the way you see the game. As a football coach, I used Huddle for years, and it was just great. But when I became an athletic director, I made sure that our school was a Huddle school. And our coaches just loved the tools that Huddle provided that helped them coach our kids up to the highest level. At Huddle, we believe in sports and teams believe in Huddle. Join the 8 million users and turn your school into a Huddle school.
We use both Huddle and Hometown Ticketing, and you're talking about good systems. Both of those provide really, really good resources for our coaches and fans to be able to do what they need to do so much more effectively than without them. So we appreciate both of those.
Well, thanks so much for sharing that. We don't have, again, most of our guests are high school ADs, high school coaches, but it's great to hear, from the college level that these platforms help you out. Well, thanks for giving that shout out. Once again, for our listeners, our guest is Jayme Pendergast. She is the Director of Athletics at Life University. Let's hear a little bit about Life. How big is it? What level are you from a competitive level? Maybe what are some of the academic programs and what are some of the things that attracted you to Life in your current position?
Yeah, so Life University is a just shy of 3,000 students. It's a relatively young institution, and it was built as a chiropractic school, but at at some point it was the 90s, had developed undergraduate programs. Those went away for a while, but when I started with Life in 2014, they had decided to expand their undergraduate programs and to build enrollment. They really wanted to diversify the institution and make it way more than chiropractic. And so the way that they were building that was through athletics. And that's a business model that most small schools utilize. Athletics builds enrollment by way of recruiting. And we've just been really successful in that business strategy. And when I started in 2014, we had 4 sports. We had just added 2 other ones. And now we're at 23 sports. We have almost 700 student athletes. What a lot of people don't understand is that we're the largest athletic department in Metro Atlanta. So we have more student athletes than a Georgia State, a Georgia Tech, a Kennesaw State. And what we're proud about is that we really have built in a strategic way so that we really focus on comprehensive success. We want all of our sports teams to be successful. We want to see all of our sports teams experience what a championship run looks like, or a bid to the national tournament looks like. And we really think that that differentiates us from a lot of schools that focus on 1 or 2 sports. And we've been pretty successful at it. Just last year, we finished 7th in the NACDA Directors Cup, which I don't know if that's familiar to a lot of high school ADs, but at the college level, that's a really big deal because it measures comprehensive success across all of your sport programs.
No, actually, that's something that is very familiar. Most states have a similar program where they recognize the high schools, and they'll rank them
Yeah.
by how well the teams do overall. And many of them do it a separate one for boys, separate one for girls, and then a combined one too. So no, that is a big thing. There's even some conferences that do that. So and we want to see ADs do that. We don't want that stereotypical
Yep.
they got 12 programs, but only one of them gets the
Yeah.
resources. What are some ways that, and we're going to talk about some best practices in a general term, but specifically, what are some ways that you get supported as a athletic director from the university, or let's say even from the community, that have been impactful to allow your programs to have the success that you've been able to achieve?
Yeah, I'm glad you asked the question because, we're lucky that we get to do what we love to do, because we get support from the institution. And while certainly we add to the enrollment of the institution, we couldn't do it without a really solid base or foundation to which we can recruit to. So, the university has done a really great job with providing us what we think is first-class resources, especially if you take all the D2, D3, NAI programs across the entire country. I would really consider us in the top 90% from a facilities perspective. So they've been helped us invest in turf fields, great facility upgrades. We have some video boards now. We have a brand new performance center. We just opened a year ago that includes a brand new weight room, wrestling room. So those facilities are key to our student athlete success. They provide us with scholarships, and that obviously is always a good pull for recruiting. And I'm lucky that we have resources to attract and retain some really, really great coaches. The leaders that we put in front of our student athletes are key to our success. And so for the university to support their growth and development is just so valuable.
You mentioned scholarships. Looking at the department and all the teams that you offer or that offer scholarships, is there a formula? Does this team get 25%, and then they can divide those up further. Does anybody give full scholarships? And is there an easy answer for you to give?
Yeah, it's easy and hard at the same time. So it's funny. I've had a few conversations recently about every single school. It doesn't matter what level you're at. Like, you have a business model, and any AD has to be savvy at leveraging that business model in an effective way. And so we work off, a lot of small schools work off of what we call a discount rate, which means it's a percentage. You scholarship at a percentage of cost of attendance. And so it's based on an average. So let's just say you have a discount rate of, I'll just throw out 50% to make it easy. If your cost of attendance is $10,000 and your discount rate is 50%, so your average scholarship is going to be $5,000. So, our coaches are armed with a particular discount rate for their team. Not every team is the same, and I'm very transparent about that. And so coaches have autonomy, and they're empowered to make the best recruiting decisions. So you could offer a full, but you have to average it out. And so all of our coaches have the ability to recruit full scholarship, to walk on, truly no scholarship, and they have to manage that. And their success really comes from the way that they can have an eye for talent, offer scholarship, and make the most of that talent.
No, absolutely. The coach has got to be involved and, find those students that can compete at the level, contribute to the program, but also they got to be successful in the classroom. It doesn't do anybody any good, including the student, to bring in somebody that's not going to be able to succeed in that academic environment. Jayme, we'll do this at the end of the podcast, but if one of our listeners wanted to reach out and talking about networking, add you to their network, or find out more about Life University and the programs, what's the best way they can get a hold of you?
Yeah, I think the best way is either email or on Twitter. Like, I really love Twitter because I think it's a valuable tool for a lot of professional growth and development. And so I try to share not only LifeU success on Twitter, but also try to share really good leadership content there. Anybody can connect with me via email. Life University, follow LifeU Athletics on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. And similar to what I had mentioned is our vision, which is, comprehensive success and everybody having championship experiences. And I think you'll see that on our social media, that we really value all of our teams, and you'll follow the success of every team on our social media channels.
Yeah, absolutely. I can echo that. Jayme's got a very strong Twitter game, puts out some really good posts about the athletic department. We're going to take another break, but we are going to come back. Once again, our guest is Jayme Pendergast. She's the director of athletics at Life University in Marietta, Georgia. Please stay with us. This is the Educational AD Podcast. We want to say thanks to Sideline Interactive indoor score tables and scoreboards. Go to sidelineinteractive.com and schedule a live web demo and see their scoreboards and their score tables in action. Probably one of the best purchases I ever made was our Sideline Interactive indoor score table. Of course, we use it for home games, but we also use it for pep rallies, for signing ceremonies. It's tremendously versatile, and their customer service is just outstanding. Go to sidelineinteractive.com. Let them help you create the ultimate game day experience for your student athletes. We also want to say thanks to Snap Mobile. Go to snapraise.com and check out their entire suite of platforms designed to help you do your job better. SnapRaise is the fundraising platform. Have you ever spent hours and hours on a fundraiser, days and days, with little, if any, return? Stop right here. SnapRaise is the best online fundraiser out there, hands down. We used it at my school with great success. Our coaches loved it. Our parents loved it. Our finance office loved it. And the important thing is it works. They even have a program where they will give you your funding before you actually start your fundraiser. Nobody else does that. Go to snapraise.com/EDAD. Check out their entire suite of platforms. That's snapraise.com. And we want to say thanks to Home Campus. Home Campus is the exclusive high school and state association information management platform for us. It's also your one-stop platform for scheduling, for facility management, for student athlete clearance and eligibility, and a whole lot more. As an athletic director, I used Home Campus every single day, and it was just great. And the Home Campus staff was great to work with too. To get started, all you have to do is go to homecampus.com. That's homecampus.com. Welcome back, everyone, to the Educational AD Podcast. Jayme, one of the things that we try to do with the podcast is this idea of sharing best practices. So once again, I'm going to put you on the spot. What are some things that you do at Life University that you would consider a best practice that you can share with our listeners?
So I think one of the best pieces that I've really honed in on, and it kind of comes from that systems thinking perspective, but I'm a big believer in effective leadership gives autonomy and empowers your staff to make really good decisions. And so for me, it's been taking a really close look at the processes and the procedures and the policies that we have as a department, and making sure that they're not a bottleneck to anybody. So we describe things from a risk perspective. So if you look at the riskier things that we touch or that we do, so you're talking, so athletic care, travel, compliance-based things, to have systems and policies in place that allow for the least amount of quote unquote failure or oversight as possible. So we have just good systems to catch errors. If you don't have good systems to catch errors, humans make errors. And so, for instance, we have like an approval to sign, which means that before a coach signs a student athlete, we have a list of compliance related questions. And what it does is it prevents an oversight of, did we send a release? Did we send a contact notification? Did we look at, XYZ? And we'll catch things in there. Versus there's other non-risk related areas that we have no policy and procedure over, because I really want to empower our coaches to be able to do things in a creative way that they can put their thumb on. But if there's mistakes, it's low risk. We can work through those, and failure is okay in those low risk areas. And so my toolbox has really kind of defined what we will and will not put P&P around. And the result of that, what I believe, has been empowered coaches to feel like they have ownership over their program, that they can be a CEO over their program and not feel burdened by a million P&P where 80% of them don't make a difference and just cause them headaches and frustrations. And so I look at everything that comes through, especially from an admin side of things we want to do. And if it puts a cap on that ownership, and it's not a high risk area, I say, no, we're not going to do it. And we've found a lot of success kind of using that system. And I just think it's really good perspective to look at things through, do I need a process for this, or can I just let my coach manage it to their best ability?
I love it. Again, you talk about, this systematic approach. Speaking of putting you on the spot, let's, go off script here. I use the expression about, from an administrator perspective, about a coach going rogue. You have policies, you have procedures in place. You do your best to communicate them, to your staff collectively and then individually. And maybe it's not a head coach, maybe it's an assistant coach, but have you ever had a coach and it doesn't have to be a big thing. Maybe it's a small thing, but have you ever had a coach go rogue? And what were some of the steps you used to maybe bring them back into the fold?
Yeah, it's a good question. So the answer is yes, but if they go rogue in a low risk area, right, it's actually serves as a better teaching tool than anything.
Yeah.
So, let's just say, like, I give a lot of autonomy over our teams and their branding. So what do they put on t-shirts? What do they want their team motto to be for a year? Like, what the things that they're putting on social media, because again, they're professionals, they have good judgment, but some things kind of are like not sure, like that was like exceptional judgment.
Right.
Well, we had a somewhat poor taste in what a coach decided to put on a t-shirt, but it was so low risk. Like all we did was just pull the t-shirts, like it didn't matter. But what it created was a really good teaching and learning opportunity. And then I take those to staff meetings for case study. And what I'm most proud of is one of our core values as a department is constant growth, which is meaning don't be afraid of failure. And I've yet to have anybody on my staff turn down the opportunity to be an example for a case study. So, that's just one low risk example of like, yeah, like that t-shirt design kind of went rogue. It was outside of what we would normally see, but it was low risk. Like it wasn't offensive by any means, but it was just different. But it was great. It was a great learning opportunity. It won't happen again. It gave us some more bumpers to put around that and use that as a case study, move on. We haven't though had coaches go rogue on something high risk, like let's say travel safety, right? Because we put pretty good P&P around the admin side of travel safety. So we have checks and balances. I haven't had a coach go rogue on their decisions that are around, they're primarily budget based, right? When you're talking about travel, because we have good checks and balances around that. And so, a high risk area like that, we're a little bit more rigid. We have more checks and balances, and we don't have those. There's a gross oversight. Like once I think we had a really gross, like I would say a coach was negligent over compliance. It was dealt with swiftly and effectively, and it's never happened again. But I would just argue, if you define to your staff what's high risk, what's moderate risk, what's low risk, sometimes going rogue is a good way to teach and for people to learn. But you just hope it's a low risk area.
No, I love the way that you rank those, the high risk, low risk, et cetera, in your hierarchy. For me, and again, I know it's just semantics. If a coach has gone rogue, it's either high risk or it's almost high risk. Those smaller things, like you talked about, those are learning opportunities. Now, I do have to ask, since you opened the door, you don't have to tell me the name of the coach, of course, or even the sport, but what was on the t-shirt?
It was actually a reference to it was kind of like a chiropractic reference about it says, I don't want to give away too much information, but it was a fun play on the chiropractic reference, but it wasn't how the chiropractic as a profession would have referenced
Yeah.
himself. Yeah.
Mhm.
So yeah, it was just a difference in how a non-chiropractor and a chiropractor would reference something, and it was supposed to be fun, but it just came off less professional. And like I said, it was a great learning opportunity. And to be honest, it hasn't necessarily changed my mind that we need to run all of our t-shirt designs through myself anymore. Like it was a great learning opportunity.
Right. No, I look back at my career as an AD. I can't remember something like that on a t-shirt, but I remember we had something that ended up in a program, a sports specific program, game day program, that I'm asking the coach later, what were you thinking? And so again, it was a learning opportunity. Nobody got fired over it, but I'm just going, seriously?
Well,
Uh,
and I think sometimes it's based on your lens, right? Because what one person thinks is like, oh, that's fun,
uh-huh.
to another person, they're like, no, that's not fun. And I mean, you could go, I mean, that's a daily battle for any human being, um, but yeah, again, it served as a great learning opportunity.
Yeah.
So
Well, Jayme, this has been so cool to connect with you, a little bit deeper. We chatted briefly to set this up, but appreciate you coming on. But we're not done yet. We always wrap up with the athletic director's toolbox. Now, you certainly know your way around the world of athletics, but we're going to take our final break and hear from Athletic Surveys, who sponsor the toolbox segment. When we come back, I'm going to challenge you to send out a brand new athletic director on their very first job, but I'm only going to let you put 3 things in the toolbox. So let's take that final break. And when we come back, we're going to find out what Jayme Pendergast is going to put into her new athletic director toolbox. Here we go. We want to say thanks to Athletic Surveys for sponsoring the AD Toolbox segment. Athletic Surveys are a quick, easy, and an affordable way for you to collect comprehensive data that allows you to evaluate and improve your athletic department. Athletic directors already hear back from the complainers, that group that wants to gripe about everything. Athletic Surveys will connect you with that small percentage, but they'll also connect you with the 98% that support your program. And that's a tremendously valuable tool to have when you're talking with a frustrated parent or a frustrated student athlete, or maybe your principal or even your school board. Go to athleticsurveys.com. They're going to create that custom survey that lets you take the pulse of your parents and your student athletes. That's athleticsurveys.com. Let them help you take your athletic program from good to great. Well, it's that time of the podcast. We've been visiting with Jayme Pendergast, the longtime athletic director at Life University in Marietta, Georgia. Has an incredible background in athletics, but right now I'm going to challenge her to send out a brand new athletic director, although I'm only going to let her put 3 items in the toolbox. So, Jayme, what 3 things are going to go into your new athletic director toolbox?
So the first one, incredibly underestimated and overlooked, but don't ever underestimate the power of a handwritten note card. I think any new AD, any long-term AD needs to keep a drawer full of note cards and be able to write thank yous, write letters of encouragement. They got to be handwritten because they go a long way. I think it shows, you put people first, and they're so easy and inexpensive. And it's interesting to me, like, people keep those. You'll see them hung on bulletin boards in the drawers, like they'll keep those handwritten notes. So always keep an empty note card, a drawer full of them, and honor your people, because they're the most important thing to your organization. So the other piece is, metaphorical, like it's nothing you can hold, but know how to ask good questions. I am a big believer in, commitment over command. And I think you build commitment from the people you lead by asking good questions. It shows them that you're paying attention, you're trying to see through things through their lens. And it's something I didn't start out well doing. I tried to just observe and then process my observations without asking follow-up questions, and I do it all the time. Just last night I watched a women's basketball game on a stream, and basketball is my passion. I texted my women's basketball coach, and it's like, why XYZ? Just because I was just curious. And So I think understanding the power of questions, know that sometimes when things don't make sense, like pull questions out of the toolbox and ask them intently and ask them in a well-meaning way. And then the third tool is your calendar. You mentioned it. ADs are just so busy. I would say use your calendar intentionally. I think leaders, ADs, anybody that with a busy schedule, they need to intentionally schedule times on their calendars to do things like think and just process. Like I'll just throw an hour block on my calendar, because then no one can schedule over it since it's blocked. But like just to take a walk and think, because that's where the best processing happens. I'll take an hour, put on my calendar and say, like, walk around and go to practices, because the power of presence, right? Student athletes see you, coaches see you, you walk around and meet people on campus, but use your calendar. And it also helps you as a leader keep boundaries and keep your sanity. So those are the three tools I think are so important. And I wish I would have had them earlier in my career. It's kind of, I learned those a lot over time. And I got a drawer full of note cards. I got a blocked calendar right now. And I have a really good Rolodex of questions for me to ask coaches and my staff. And it really helps leadership wise.
But you probably saw me writing those down, and again, I love them all. I've got my note cards here. That handwritten note, absolutely. It is so impactful, and yet so easy to do, and yet so few ADs and coaches do it. So add that to your toolbox. Great suggestion. I also have my day planner here. Written calendar along with spreadsheets and things. Great stuff. Jayme, really appreciate you coming on board. Once again, if one of our listeners wanted to reach out, pick your brain a little bit, or find out more about Life University, what's the best way they can do that?
Yeah, email me at jayme.pendergast@life.edu, or anything on Twitter. I'll respond to, but would be happy to share more information about leadership, Life U athletics. Yeah, just really happy to. A lot of people have shared a lot of great things with me, and happy to pass it on.
Well, we appreciate you sharing with us today. All the best moving forward. I know you got some. By the time people listen to this, in about a week, you'll have that good news about your women's soccer team going on in the playoffs. So all the best with the rest of your sports season.
Thanks. I really appreciate the opportunity to share.
Oh no, you were great. Thank you. For listeners, we appreciate you listening. And you also know we upload the Zoom recordings to the Educational AD Podcast YouTube channel. We do this just about every day. So come back for more great information, interviews, and best practices on the next Educational AD Podcast.